GM, guys. Welcome to the show. Today it's just me because Casey is in Lisbon. I am happy to host the show today, and we will have a guest today, and I'm really excited to bring him up later on. And before that, I would like to invite our chairman.
What is discussed on the GM show is not investment advice. We may or may not have ownership interests in the projects we are talking about, but this is not investment advice in any way, shape or form. And this is not Sir David Attenborough.
I don't know about you, but like, when's the last time you pick up a book and read, and like, what do you read about? And I'm really interested, like, so, post a comment below if you're reading some good books recently. And today we also have a good book to recommend. And that's why I want to bring up our guest today. And it's kind of unusual for us to bring up like a book author, but I think it will be really, really fun to like deep dive some of the hot topics of Web3 today. And we are going to invite Alex to the stage. I want to welcome today's guest, Alex Tapscott, the author of Web3 Charting the Internet's Next Economic and Cultural Frontier, has been named a Wall Street Journal business bestseller. And the book is resonating with a lot of broad business audience who are eager to understand the next era of the web. So, hi, Alex.
Hey, Karen.
How's it going?
I'm doing well.
Thank you so much for coming to the show. You cover so many hot topics around Web3 in your book. So what sparks the idea for this book? Like, what's behind this book, the story of this book?
Well, maybe for the listeners who don't know who I am, it might be helpful to do some background. So I first got into this industry about 10 years ago, 2014. I learned about a thing called Bitcoin. This is before the word, blockchain, or certainly the word Web3 entered our language. There was this one asset and it was really interesting, but it was still pretty fringe and it was relatively small. We're talking maybe a few $1 billion of market capitalization at the time. But the more I looked into it, the more convinced I became that this was something special, that the asset itself was revolutionary, but that the underlying technology could form the platform for, a new era of financial services. And that's really what was my focus at the beginning, was on finance. And the reason for that is at the time I was working in investment banking. I was actually in a capital markets role on a trading floor, looking at the way we were moving and storing assets as, such as like equities and bonds, and basically concluding that the way that Bitcoin worked was just a lot better. So within a year or so, I basically became convinced this is where I wanted to spend the rest of my career, or at least the next period of my career. And I did something interesting, which is I quit my job to write a book, having never written a book and with no idea what was going to happen after. But
Wow.
I got lucky in my choice of co-author. I partnered up on my first book with my dad, Don Tapscott, who's a very prolific business author, who's written lots of stuff. And together we wrote a book called Blockchain Revolution, which came out in 2016.
Yeah.
Now, they say that luck is the combination of preparation and good timing. So we think we prepared in the sense that we wrote a good book, but we benefited from some good timing. This period of 2016, 2017 was really when a lot of people outside of the tech world were trying to get a feel for this stuff and understand what it meant for them. Was this something I needed to care about, pretty much? And our book was the best book, in my view, in the market that did that. And so it ended up getting finding a lot of success. It was translated into 19 languages and actually sold, we think, more copies in Asian languages than in English. So It was translated into Korean, Japanese, Simple Chinese, Mandarin, Thai, and across those different markets sold like tons and tons and tons of copies. And so what's funny actually is that when I go to Asia, I'm typically more easily recognized by people in our community than I am necessarily in North America, which is interesting for a few reasons, including the fact that I think that the center of gravity in Web3 is shifting to Asia, and we can get to that in a second. But anyway, in the last couple of years, I've done lots of really interesting things on the back of that book. I've been a venture capital investor. I launched a research institute. I've done a lot of advisory work and continue to do a lot of writing. And in fact, it was sort of 2 or 3 years ago when I was looking at this emerging world of Web3. It was crypto and it was blockchain, but it was a lot more than that. There was the integration of extended reality technologies, of decentralized physical infrastructure, of how AI and blockchain intersected. And there was all this stuff happening. And I felt like the time was right, basically, for another book to, explain what was going on for people. They say that the future is bright, but it's not always clear. And I think that, if anything, especially in the last couple of years, there's been a lot of what I would call like mud that's been thrown on the windshield that's helped to sort of clutter people's perspective on what's going on. And my goal is to really sort of help to wipe that away and to help give people a clear idea of what's happening. And so that was the impetus for the book. And, for the past 18, 19 months, I've been working on this thing. And it was just released in September, published by HarperCollins in the US. And as you've mentioned in your introduction, so far it is resonating with a broad business audience, clearly, despite the fact that, the market this summer was kind of weak. Hasn't really mattered to most business readers who I think are looking at this and saying, I need to become educated about what's going on.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think this is like the best timing. And I think a lot of people in this market is trying to, not fogged by like the market prices, but more like focusing on like building as well. A lot of builders are listening to this show. So I don't think we can talk about every single topic of the book today, but there are some really interesting ones that I want to hear your thoughts on. So how do you see the rise of SocialFi recently with like Friendtech and Stars Arena? Is SocialFi here to stay? Like, will we see more social products in the next 6 months? Like, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, they say there's nothing so powerful as an idea whose time has come. In this case, an idea whose time has come again. Because we have had kicks at the can as it relates to social tech. The idea that there should be ways for you to monetize your presence online. That if you're a contributor to a platform, that you should be an owner of that platform, and that there's a way to sort of attach like a currency to your social cachet, right? And I think that that's very in line with a lot of success that we've seen in Web3. In the book, I actually talk about how when I was in university, I was one of the first people, just by accident, really, that had a Facebook account. Probably one of the first, like when I say the first people, I mean like the first million people or first half a million people, right?
Your number is like the smallest numbers on
I wasn't in the dorm room with Mark Zuckerberg, but my university was like the 30th university to get access to it. People maybe don't know this, but like in the early days, it was like a university social network. And in the early days, I was sharing all this information about myself and sharing photos and building this social graph and adding all this value to this platform. And ultimately, like a social network is valuable and useful because it has lots of connections, right? The bigger the network, the greater the network effects, as they say. Now, in the early days, I was just happy to sort of trade away all this data for access to this free service because it was sort of fun. But in retrospect, that sort of seems like kind of a raw deal in a way, because a lot of value has been created because of the contribution of early members who are very enthusiastic, people who are on Facebook, and also like fundamentally, like what is the bargain that I've received in exchange? Well, in the end, like I became just another target for advertisers and for recommendation engines that target me with information that maybe they think is useful, but maybe I don't, and has degraded the experience and made me just another sort of data point on a spreadsheet. So I think like looking back, wouldn't it have been interesting if we could have applied a user-owned network model to something like Facebook, where I'm still using Facebook because it's fun and I'm 20 years old and I like to, look at photos of my friends and girls and like make connections and, hit on people or whatever it is that I was doing back then. But in the process, I have an easy, frictionless way to like earn a stake in that network. And I think that that's the key thing. It's like, could I be sort of like an inert or passive sort of recipient of value because of the contribution that I've made? So we know that this works in Web3 because we've seen it happen in DeFi, right? If you're a market maker on Uniswap, or you're a liquidity provider on Compound or whatever, you're earning a share of the platform the more you do on the platform. So it's a model we know that works for finance, and I think it should work for social tech. And I'm really excited about these projects that you just identified, like Friendtech. I have one caveat, which is that I think this stuff works really well in DeFi because everybody who's using a DeFi platform is like financially engaged, right?
Yes.
Like they care about trading and things going up and down and making money and arbitraging and MEV and all this other stuff, right? But like if you're a user of a social network, most users of a social network or some sort of social tech want it because it's fun and it's meaningful, right? It helps to build connection. It's not necessarily to like make money. And so I think that the problem that we see often in the design of Web3 apps, I guess, for lack of a better term, is that people generally tend to start with the financial component, like the token engineering versus the like application level. And everyone becomes fixated on that rather than on the underlying function. And I'm not sure if that's maybe an inevitability in a way that, look, if you're going to have a thing that can go up and down in value, people are going to become fixated on that because it's a way to make money and everybody cares about making money. Like you cannot get around that. But I'm hoping that it ends up with a more balanced mix where, yeah, maybe that's something that people do care about, where ownership is part of the user experience and part of ownership means potentially making or losing money. But that in the aggregate, it's not like the whole thing, that people are using it because it's fun, not because it's a potential speculation.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be a powerful thing. Like if we focus more on the social part rather than the fi part.
Yeah.
In the book you mentioned creators are gaining back their power through Web3. So do you think more creators are jumping into the Web3 to earn money from their content, or how's this going to impact the creators' economy overall?
Yeah, I think right now, well, let me put it differently. I think that culture needs a new business model.
Yeah.
I think that, culture has gone through various stages over the many, many years that we've been on this planet. In the Middle Ages, if you were a creator, painter or sculptor or designer, architect, you had to find a wealthy patron to support your works. So,
Yeah.
the Medicis or the King of England or the Catholic Church or something. And the modern era, the rise of industrialization really changed that. Because what it did was it allowed people to sell their content one to many. So if you were a writer, you could sell a paperback novel, a million times. Or if you were a graphic designer or an artist, you could sell like a lithograph or a print. If you were a musician, later on, you could sell a record and then a CD. And so we had this era of mass market consumption, where if you were a creator, you could earn a small fraction from the sale of many, many units to a broad audience, right? And that's something that grew and grew and grew through the 20th century. The internet was actually supposed to make things even better for creators, because what it would do would be to allow them to access a truly global market peer-to-peer. And in the case of, say, like musicians, you wouldn't have had to like cut a record and sell it through a storefront and give somebody else a cut of the action. You could sell it directly to the fans. Of course, that's unfortunately not really what happened. What happened was the first era of the internet, the internet up until the rise of blockchain, was really a medium for information, not for value. So what you could do with music is just copy it over and over and over again, right? Until the value of that music was very, very little. And so what ended up happening is we got a new group of intermediaries who stepped in to try and organize this chaos. And that's where we got the big platforms, streaming companies and so forth. And the upshot of all that is that, creators today make less than they have before, and they certainly know a lot less about how their music is being consumed and how much it's being monetized. And now we have the threat of artificial intelligence. Now, I'm not an AI gloomer at all. In fact, I'm really excited about AI. But I think a lot of people in studios and creative industries are also excited about it as a way to cut out humans. As a way to get AI to write scripts or to do visual effects, right? Or to write music for film and TV. And so there's this now new potential threat, I think, to the livelihood of creators. So where do we go from here? Well, I think culture needs a new business model. I think we need a model that puts more power in the hands of creators. And I think that Web3 can be part of the solution in sort of three important ways. Number one is that Web3 actually gives creators new ways to fund projects, to fund creative ventures. And we see this actually a lot in Southeast Asia around the gaming space, that traditionally studios in the Philippines are doing a lot of work for big companies in the US, but there isn't a well-formed venture market there to help develop new titles from Filipino studios. But what those studios can now do is sell digital goods that represent assets in the in-game experience as a way to like bootstrap and fund the development of those projects. So to me, that's really exciting. The second way that they can do it is it's just new ways to basically connect with fans, right? So there's this theory that you only need 1,000 patrons or 1,000 great fans to fund work. And if you have most of your fans are listening or consuming your content for free, but others are paying $100 a year because they believe in you and they want to feel a deeper connection to you. Well, now you have new tools to do that. And I think that's really exciting. The third is that user-owned platforms themselves are an interesting way for creators to participate in the outcome of their work. So something like Audius, for example, which I cover in the book, is basically like a user artist-owned streaming platform where the more you post, the more you share, the more engagement you have, the more of the platform you earn. And then the final piece is as it relates to AI specifically, which is that there's all this data going into these large language models. And the big problem around AI is transparency. Who owns this data? Are those people getting notified or compensated that their data is getting used? And if they are, should they be getting paid, right? And I think that there's all these different solutions people have brought up to solve this problem. We need new regulation. We need to sue the big tech companies. All that might be true, but there's another way to tackle this. In the world of NFTs, there are 300 different projects that have earned at least $1 million from secondary royalty revenue, right? So, people on the show are pretty familiar with Web3, but basically there's all this sales of assets of digital goods called NFTs. But then if they're resold, you can program them so that they pay a royalty to the creator. And over 300 projects have paid a royalty. So what that means is we can take something that is an asset, IP, and we can ensure that there's a way to compensate the creator when it gets used over and over again. So why can't we do that for a large language model, where every time IP is used in a model, it creates a royalty stream that goes back to the original creator? It would just be a way to automate this whole thing. We need more transparency, and I think that there's other blockchain solutions for AI. But in this one narrow instance, this is just a simple way for creators to get paid. So I think taken as a whole, if culture needs a new business model, we now have a new toolkit to make that happen.
That's great, because we work with a lot of creators in the space, and I think we are also building our own SocialFi products. So this is going to be we hope that this is going to be the next step, that we're actually helping the creators to take back their power and actually being able to impact the economy a little bit. Here's my favorite quote in the book. You said the next Silicon Valley will not be a place. And we talked about Asia a little bit just now. So how will America compete in the Web3 space while a lot of Asia countries are already full speed ahead and basically embracing Web3 already? So what other countries will win this race?
Yeah, well, I'm very encouraged to hear that it's being embraced wholeheartedly in those places. Silicon Valley was once called a tech Galapagos. Mm-hmm. Because of the very unique blend of capital and talent and government R&D and universities and all these other sort of conditions that created the unique species of internet companies. Then those companies, of course, went on to kind of dominate the global economy for 25 years. This time is different. I think that technology tools and capital and capability are more spread out than they ever have been. And I also think that governments in other parts of the world are frankly more enlightened about this than they are in the United States. And, in the 1990s, the Web3 had a lot of tailwinds. It had, not Web3, the first era of the internet had a lot of tailwinds in the 1990s, in the US in particular. It had governments that were, a government that was, trying to understand this and figure out ways to create the conditions for it to succeed. And we got a bunch of laws that actually helped to accelerate internet adoption, like the Telecommunications Act. The fact that almost all the internet connections in the world were in places like, the US and maybe Canada and some parts of Western Europe. The entire venture capital industry pretty much was located in the United States. The entire technology industry, more or less, was located in the United States. And almost all of the R&D that had gone into developing the web was in part government funded by the U.S. So basically, everything was working in their favor back then.
Yeah.
And you know, this time is different, right? And so I think that it's not like it's not like the Silicon Valley won't be important. It's more just that there won't be one winner take all kind of place that wins in Web3. And there's a couple. Partly that's a reflection of the fact that the world is more is flatter now than it was in the past. You know, there are like, you know, how wealthy was Singapore in 1992 versus today? It's the wealthiest place in the world, and the center of innovation, and you know, it's a dynamic, you know, global powerhouse, right? Even places like Hong Kong, Seoul, and others are similar in that respect. Like they've become far more important than they were in that period of time. But also the tools themselves decentralize, you know, value creation in a way that I think makes place a little less important. I think that place matters because I think that regulations are important, and I think that local centers of excellence are important. Like people like to work together, they want to collaborate, they need to be in a place where they can do that, and I think that's very important. Access to capital is very important, and being co-located near, you know, big investors is clearly a competitive advantage. But at the same time, you know, with these tools, we have ways to build value online in ways that wasn't possible before. And I think of DAOs, frankly, as being like the kind of like the killer app for Web3 that it just hasn't materialized quite yet. And by that, I mean, like, if you wanted to launch a user-owned network today and have it go live in 50 different countries all around the world, and make it really easy for your users and your contributors and your employees and contractors to earn a share of that by adding value, how would you do that today with a traditional company, right?
Right.
Like you just couldn't. It's just simply impossible. You'd have to sign options agreements in 50 countries and 12 languages, and you'd have lawyers in each country enforcing the terms, and it would just be prohibitively expensive. But with a DAO, with an internet native organization, okay, you got a token reward, and then the more you add value, the more of a token you earn. Period. Done. It's done. So it's like this is a simpler architecture for getting people around the world to collaborate on a common good and to build something of value, right? And so that in and of itself decentralizes the need for place more than anything.
Great. We always talk about bridging Web 2 to Web 3, right? And you also mentioned like DAOs may be the killer app for our digital economy. So you see like companies like Starbucks is already building their Web 3 products. Like what advice would you give to corporates that are stepping into Web 3? Like, are they like, what do they need, or mindset that they need to like change?
Yeah, well, I do give a lot of advice to corporates who are entering Web3. I mentioned in the introduction that I'm a co-founder of the Blockchain Research Institute. And the Blockchain Research Institute is one of the largest think tanks in the world that's focused on enterprise use cases. So our membership has included companies like FedEx and Microsoft and Coca-Cola and Exxon, and CIBC and Manulife Securities. So like these are sort of not Web3 native organizations, to put it mildly. Oh, and also including like Tencent, Fujitsu, and several other Asian companies as well. Mm-hmm. And I think that they've kind of gone through a bit of an evolution when it comes to blockchain. In 2016, 17, they looked at things like Ethereum, and I think we're kind of skeptical, frankly. And I think what they really wanted to do was, say, okay, well, we love the idea of a shared ledger, of having instant settlement and having transparency across, a network. So if that's a supply chain or a marketplace, that sounds great. But we don't like the idea of exposing our business to this wild, wild west of public blockchains. So we're going to build our own thing called enterprise blockchains. This is something that happened in the 90s. Companies said, we really want to be connected to the web or to the internet. We want to be able to do email, and we want to do information search and all this stuff, but we don't want to be connected to the public web. So we're going to build intranets, right? Yeah, and there's still intranets. A lot of banks and the Department of Defense, they use intranets. They need closed networks, but in general, all the innovation and value creation happen on the public web, and the same thing is true today. That evolutionary process of going from enterprise blockchains has kind of come to an end, and now all of the serious implementations for enterprise are happening on public networks. And my experience over the last, call it 18 months, ever since the crypto market started to go into a decline, was that enterprises actually, like, contrary to what you might think, have been accelerating their embrace of this technology. And you don't have to ask me. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. Whether it's consumer-facing brands or large financial firms like Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, etc., we're seeing announcements. What makes these things different is that they're not proof of concept pilot projects happening on enterprise blockchains. They're commercial grade projects happening on public blockchains. And that's the big difference. I think the fact that Ethereum moved from proof of work to proof of stake is frankly a big, something that makes it frankly easier for enterprises to do stuff in this industry. It's not because Bitcoin actually boils the oceans. There's a lot of data around that. It's more just like, if you're a public company with public shareholders, it's a lot easier to experiment on a network that doesn't use any more energy than your average data center does, right? And so I think that's been a big thing. And I think if anything, the fact the market has declined has actually made it easier for enterprises to experiment, because they're outside of the harsh glare of the market that's like trying to figure out like what's going on and how to play it and all sorts of things. So that's been really encouraging. So that didn't really answer your question, but here's the direct answer to your question, which is the way that I talk to people is to say, you don't have to reinvent your entire business. Like, using Web3 doesn't mean turning Starbucks into a DAO. What it means is, think of it as like a toolkit, right? It's like you've got your toolkit, and inside your toolkit, you've got all sorts of useful tools. And inside this toolkit, these tools can help you to maybe launch new products, enter new markets, target new customers, grow into new areas, of the world that maybe you couldn't before. And that's how you should think about this, is as something that helps to enable new capability for your business. And that's a little bit different than like use it as a way to save money by like automating back office or something. I think that that's less interesting than experimenting with new revenue opportunities. So when I see Starbucks, which is basically like a payments company masquerading as a coffee shop, because it's got like the Starbucks loyalty program, and payments network and so forth, using this, I'm like, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I don't see why loyalty points shouldn't also be digital bearer assets that you can use to pay for other things. That's something that I think is really interesting. If it's Nike or one of the other consumer brands, look, I mean, shoes are commodities, but Nike sells something that could be sold for $20 for $200 because it is a brand. And its brand is that it honors creators and athletes. So if more and more people are going to be spending time online, they're going to care about the presentation of their digital self. And so they're going to want to buy digital assets that reflect who they are. So that's a natural fit as well. If it's like PayPal, PayPal today makes less money than Tether. So why wouldn't it launch a stable coin? Because it's a much better revenue model to earn interest on treasuries while issuing a digital asset against it. If they can scale that to $20 or $30 billion, then obviously they can start to do really, really well as well. So these are not recommendations to buy investments or anything. It's just an observation that, the best way to think about it is to lean into the public side, but also to be pragmatic. Don't boil the ocean. Find something that you can do that can actually add value to your business.
Yeah, that's great advice. You also talked a lot about AI, and I think AI is like one of the hottest keyword of like the past 6 months. So like when we talk about Web3 with AI, like how's AI's potential being unleashed by Web3? Like what is the key for that?
Well, there are people who know more about this than I do, but basically I think it kind of boils down to two things. One is around data transparency, so provenance and ownership, and the other is around governance of these protocols. So like right now, most of the big AI innovation and value capture is happening at big tech companies, right? So big tech companies, maybe they've been the ones who've developed the models, or maybe they've partnered with Anthropic and OpenAI and these other sort of smaller companies. But fundamentally, the reason that they're valuable is because they have all the data. They have all this information that they can use to train the model. And all of that data is created by you and me, but it's not owned by you and me, right? And that's the Web2 model, which is that's basically digital serfdom. we give up all the value, in exchange we get access to some free services or something. Or in the case of ChatGPT-4, not so free services, right? So it's sort of interesting, like they're using all our data and then selling it back to us, literally selling it back to us as a paid service. So the question is, how do we ensure that creators will get paid fairly? Now, I talked about creators in the sort of professional sense earlier, but creators can include anybody who creates anything of value. And so I just think simply there needs to be a better way to have transparency into the system and to ensure that the creators of value actually get compensated for it. And then there's the question of governance, which is like, if these things are going to be as powerful as a lot of people think, and frankly, I think it's already like obvious how disruptive they're going to be, then who gets to decide what the parameters are for how these things are governed and what kind of rules they're put in place? Is it the shareholders of Facebook? Well, I mean, they have a split tier share structure where where Mark Zuckerberg still gets to control everything, or Google or one of these other companies. Is it going to be governments and regulators? Well, certainly they're going to have something to say about it, and I think that done right, that can be a good thing, not a bad thing. But I think there should be something about applying user-owned, like a user-owned network to an AI large language model. Like, how do we ensure that there's community governance of the model? And I think that's really important. Sorry, there's someone drilling in the wall next to my head. I don't know what that is. I apologize.
No, it's okay.
I hope you can still hear me. Yeah. Well, and then I had a third thought, but it feels like there's a power drill in my brain, so I can't really think of it at the moment. Come back to me. We'll keep talking.
Yeah. I mean, so my other question is like, this whole space like is moving so fast, like, well, since the book that's published, right? So what else you wish you'd cover in the book now that you think it's important?
Honestly, so far so good. So the last edit to the book was made probably June 31st. So it came out September. So I had 3 months where I hoped that nothing crazy happened. And, in this industry, fortunately, it moves very slowly, and, there's not a lot of new information coming out. No, I'm just kidding. So far so good. Friend Tech was interesting. And I think maybe in the chapter on user-owned networks, I could have had a paragraph on that. But in general, I kind of talk about it in the abstract, even though there's no specific example. So yeah, I would say that with any book like this, you kind of hope that it remains relevant for 5 years. And I think, even at the outset, you were mentioning how with this podcast, you don't want it to be, Bitcoin's up, Bitcoin's down, or whatever. You want it to be, what are some of the big themes and ideas that people can, think about at any time? And I think that that's true for the work that I've done. And, Blockchain Revolution is a book that's 7.5 or 8 years old. And people still tell me that it's a really useful starting point for them as they're thinking about this stuff. So that's really encouraging to hear. And so I think if this book can have similar staying power, I will have done a good job.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to write a book about like a space that is always changing. People are always talking about the prices, but I think we also, as a show, we don't want to like focus on that. We want to focus on the stories and like the builder side of things. And I want to also ask Alex, like, what would you write if what's the next thing? Like, would you still write about Web3 in your next book, or like what other projects are you working on?
Well, if there is a next book, my focus right now is on making this book as successful as possible. And I think that'll be my focus pretty much for the next year. And then after a year, we can come up for air and see how we're doing. So far, Karen, we've already secured translations in Korean, simplified Chinese, Thai, Spanish, Portuguese, Turkish. So 6 languages so far. And I'm very optimistic that we'll have translations in Japanese and Mandarin and other languages in Asia as well. Because as I pointed out at the outset, this stuff is happening in Asia, probably more than it is anywhere else in the world. And there's a real interest in this subject and in books about it. And so, I fully expect that, right now in the middle of a 14-city North American book tour, I'm reaching you right now from Washington, D.C., where I'm giving a talk on Capitol Hill. In 2 days, I'm in Boston giving a talk at Harvard Business School. But this North American tour kind of winds down in a few months, and then I hope to be traveling the world. And
Yeah, you should have an Asia tour.
I should, and I'll be meeting with builders, and hopefully we can do another show live this time.
Exactly. There are so many things that's happening in Asia. There's Blockchain Week in Taipei. There's like all these there's an Ape Fest coming up next week in Hong Kong. So we're very, very excited about this. So this is where we're gonna round up the show. And I'm really happy that Alex is here with us. And I hope to see you in Asia. If you want to travel, just let us know.
Yeah, that sounds great. I hope to see you again soon.
Thank you so much, Alex.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry. Hey guys, I'm back. So thank you so much, Alex. This was recorded like a couple weeks ago, and we want to bring up Alex again because we wanted to show you guys like what we've been working on, and also like we've been really busy the past 2 weeks. So I'm also really happy to bring up Ray and Conan back from Bangkok, so they'll give us like a bit of update. What's up? What's up?
Yeah, GM.
Hello. You guys sound not well after.
No, I sound okay. Conan definitely looks sleepy. Yeah.
Yeah, like you guys all right?
I have small eyes on me, but I'm definitely not sleepy.
Well, what happens in Bangkok stays in Bangkok, right?
It's not Vegas, yeah, but I think it's close enough. Yeah.
So what happened there? What did you guys do? I know that you guys met a bunch of holders, and just want to know like what's going on in the Web3 side of things over there.
I think first of all, when we went to Bangkok, right, everyone thinks that we are going on a vacation or something. I don't know why, right? But that's the assumption of people when you tell them that you are going to Thailand, when you are going to Bangkok, right? And the thing is, we went there because of Thailand Blockchain Week. Right? I think they have their name, their own name, but basically it's like a Thailand Blockchain Week. It's organized by CryptoMine. CryptoMine is one of our private investors at Memecoin, and also Sanjay, right? The co-founder of CryptoMine is also our Memeland MVP. Right? That's why we went there, right, to support him, to support his event, and also, of course, to meet our Thai community. Right? So that's the reason why we went to Thailand. It's not because we went to vacation. Right? Yeah.
And this is like only the first stop, right? I know that we are in the plans of like going to other cities, like Conan's planning on it. Like what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks?
I think first of all, I think we need to talk about why, right? I think after launching Memeland about 1.5 years ago, and then right now after launching Memecoin, like just 10 days, 12 days ago. Yeah, so I think what we need to do more is, on one hand, we have to build out the online aspect. We mentioned our strategic objectives, right, on Twitter, PENIS, right, and one of the things is events, right. We actually want to do more events, right, but the events, it can be big and small. On one hand, we join the local events, right, organized by our partners and friends. On the other hand, we also want to ride on the big events to have some community meets up to organize our events as well. Because I think after all, when we look at the projects in the space, NFT projects, they're really, really good at organizing a lot of meetups and they are fun. Right? People join and then they feel closer to each other, and that's why they believe more in the project. Meanwhile, if you look at most of the token projects, they usually organize hackathon or maybe like a Dev Connect, right? And some conferences, right? It's more serious. For us, we want to make it both serious and also fun. right? How can we do fun things seriously, right? That's always one of my personal motto, right? I think that's what we want to do when we are running Memecoin, when we are running Memeland. Yeah, that's why we have Conan join our team about a month ago, and then we will be organizing more offline stuff, right, so that we can meet our holders in real life. And to be honest, I think people are much nicer in real life. Yeah, that's why
Agree.
I have decided to go more offline than online, at least for Memeland.
Yeah.
Touch some grass with our holders.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
literally
if you
touched
talk
some
about
glass in
yeah,
Bangkok.
if you talk about Bangkok, right, then that grass is not the same as the green grass.
Exactly. Wait, so what's happening next? Like, Conan, what are we planning?
Well, yeah, the next stop would probably be Taiwan, since we know there will be several Web3 conferences happening in Taiwan. So we are hoping to meet our Taiwan holders, and we know that we actually have a strong community in Taiwan too. I've been there once, and to meet up their holders, and it is actually quite funny that actually quite some number of our Taiwan holders also are a strong advocate of other communities as well. So I think that's actually a good thing. So when we host our Memeland party, it would be way easier for us to leverage a stronger connection with all other Web3 communities in Taiwan. So I really look forward to meet them again. And to be honest, since like the Hong Kong, Taiwan communities, we both share like similar language and similar culture. So whenever I went to Taiwan and to join their meetup and to communicate with their holders, and actually quite a lot of Taiwan holders come to Hong Kong to join our previous event too, just like the Great Banquet back in June 9th, and even our Meme Fest happened recently. So I'm really glad that we are going to start kick off one of our like a global initiative of our Memeland tour in Taiwan.
Yeah, and we are also planning. There's more coming up next year for sure. So I know a lot of people are asking when EU, when US. So
Yeah.
I think like that's like also in the plans. We're trying to locate like the best venue and also like the best week, so that like everything is happening at the same time and we can leverage on other community activities as well. Ray, what do you think about like going around the world? You didn't really travel before Memeland, right?
You make it sound like I'm from like big country and stuff like that. Yeah, but I mean, I travel mainly for conferences and for work.
Yeah.
I mean, for leisure, I'm more like a Netflix and chill guy, right? That's why I don't travel that much. And right now we have a young kid at home, right? That's why we also don't travel, right? For that reason, yeah. But I think for work and also for our company, right? Of course, I have to, as a founder, we have to do whatever the company needs us, right? I think when, especially right now, we are no longer an NFT project, right? So we literally have to go out to tell people what we are doing, right? Even though we are doing nothing, we still have to go out, right? And I think doing nothing for Memecoin, yeah, per se, they have to separate it. Yeah, it's almost like a personal disorder in a way. Yeah. So I think the whole concept is more about how can we build trust, right? Because I think for NFT, most of the holders, most of the community members, they spend a lot of time online, right? They spend a lot of time on Discord, on Twitter, so they know what's happening, right? If you show up there, right, then you can build trust among the community. Right now, most of our holders, right, for Memecoin, right, maybe they are not our existing Memeland community. Yeah, so we need to go out there to tell the world why you have to, why you can trust us, not have to, why you can trust us. So we need to be there, right? And I think that's something that we need to change. I think the principle is the same. Yeah? As a team, we go to where our holders are. We tell them what we are doing, right? So that they will understand more, so that they have more confidence, they have more faith, right? Because one thing that lacks the most in Web3 is actually trust, right? We literally say that, okay, blockchain is a trustless network, right? So that's why there's literally no trust. Yeah. And people just want to dump on each other. They always feel like, oh, I just buy low, sell high instead of, but in fact, they are like buy high, sell low and stuff like that. Right? I think instead of focusing on a lot of like short-term gain, right? We want to tell people what we are doing, right? In the coming year, in the coming 3 years, in the coming 5 years, in the coming 10 years, right? So that we can actually create some real believers, right? Not believers only by mouth, right? But actually believers by action. I think those are the things that we want to do, yeah, when we are going offline, when we are going in real life, so that we can meet our holders and also the potential holders and potential investors.
Yeah, although like
Yeah.
whenever whenever a team goes to meet up, like there's often people like drag you to a corner and saying, "Oh, is there any other?" I don't think that's what the Memeland activity or event is going to be. But I totally agree with Ray that we have to build trust, or at least like, because since the team show up and when we are like interacting with our holders, when we are actually building a real connection face to face, I think it would be better for our holders to actually put a face or actually have some real life connection with the team. So I know it's hard to maintain kind of like a belief or trust with a purely online relationship. So just like you use like Tinder or any dating app, it's always better to date face to face, right?
I don't know what Tinder is. Yeah.
Well, I also find it really funny how like the most vocal people, when I met them in real life, they're really shy, and like
Yes, exactly.
so it's really funny. Like when I was first found out, like I met some of the holders like in Hong Kong. I was like, oh, you're that person, and then they're actually a really shy person, and they're really really polite, unlike their online persona.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, like after you greeting him in daytime, like he was such a shy boy in the party, but like after the party finished, he will go back to Discord and keep tagging you in the chat saying, "Oh, Conan, Karen, you got it. It was a great party."
Yeah, it was a great feeling. I think meeting people in real life, anyways. And I think I'm especially excited that now Conan joined our team, and we are able to do more of that. And I think a lot of people would like to see maybe GM show live, or maybe like doing a lot of our activities. And I think in the next year we want to also not focus too much on like party, but we want to do more of like an event, right? So do we want to talk about that, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think there are a few aspects that we think about when we talk about the right, the events, right? I think, I mean, we started building Memeland. Like we launched the first collection of UW MVP in June last year. It feels like decades ago, but actually only a little bit more than 1 year. Right? One thing that I find out in out of like crypto or Web3 or NFT events is, I don't know why, but they're always like parties and clubs and stuff. Right? I mean, it's okay, but it feels like all the crypto bros, all the dudes, they try to compensate of all the years in college where they were a nerd, right? We were a nerd, so that we can't go to like Lan Kwai Fong or couldn't go to like nightclub, so that we just have to have parties and fun, right? But the thing is, most of those parties is all guys, right? Sitting at the table, right? Or standing to each other and then talking to each other, right? I mean, Conan and I were joking that, how come every time we went to like crypto events, it feels like, I mean, for the lack of a better word, it's like sausage fest, right? I think that is something that I'm not saying that we don't like it. It's good to meet our holders, right? But I feel like maybe we can make it a little bit different, right? We actually can make it more meaningful, and so that people, of course, they can still enjoy all the parties, right? They can just go to parties whenever there is anyone organized by other communities, right? But maybe we can do it in a more different and more meaningful way, right? So I think there are a few things that we want to do. Number one is the goal is can our team, at least like some of our team members, maybe not me, maybe not just Karen or Conan, right? At least travel to one new country or cities, right? Like once a month at least, right? So that we can meet our holders there. I mean, by the way, when we talk about what we want to do, we always have put some numbers to it. Yeah, because without that, the key result is hard to measure whether we're doing it. Oh, we want to go out more, right? What is more, right? I think it would be better to have we have numbers, right, so that we can measure how good we do it, right? It's something called OKR. It's started by Google. Right? It's started by, actually not Google. Started by John Doerr, right? I think from Sequoia. Yeah. So basically, the target that we set for our team is we go to one city or one country, right? At least once a month, right? Outside of Hong Kong, outside of where our team is based, is mostly based. Right? That's number one. Number two is can we want to organize more like a non-party like stuff. I think even like a brunch, right, or a breakfast, it makes more sense. I think a lot of people in Web3, they're actually very productive, right? So if you can actually wake up and go to a brunch or a breakfast meeting, you're probably more productive than most of the night owl, right? I think that's also something that we want to try. So instead of organizing like night parties and dinner, right, maybe we can try a brunch, right? More like a downtown Abbey style, yeah. So I think that's another thing that we want to do. And the thing that we want to do is I mean, this is something that we've been planning for some time. On one hand, it's my personal passion, right? On the other hand, it's something that is like a brand, I would say more brand fit for Memeland, for Memecoin, is we want to sponsor like 52 stand-up comedians, right, over the world. Maybe focusing on Asia first, but basically the target is over the world, where we sponsor them. So maybe as a title sponsorship, right? Maybe in other format, right? So that via these stand-up comedians, we can actually tell the world what Memeland is, what Memecoin is, what Web3 is, what NFT is, right? And they don't have to do much, right? But at least let us sponsor them, right? So that we want to support them as a creator, right? On one hand, this paves the way for the SocialFi products that we are launching very soon, right? On the other hand, we believe that making the world happier, right, is still very important for us, right? And this basically our original mission when we started like 15 years ago. So I think this is something that we want to do. I think we still have to lay out all the details, right? But the concept can be very, very straightforward, right? The comedians or the entertainers, they don't have to do any integration and stuff, because what we can do is okay, we sponsor them, we support them, and then they just have to give us some tickets, right? And then we will sell it on our way, or in our own way, or we just give out to our communities, right? I think these are the details that we have to plan it out, right? And at the same time, we will invite a video crew to maybe shoot some videos and stuff, right? And then we can help the creators to reach out to like Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, or whatever streaming platform that people are watching, right? I think that's how we can, on one hand, create a good offline or in real life experience. On the other hand, we are helping creators, and hopefully, right, this is also like a new revenue stream, right, for us. I think we try to do things in a way that, hey, events, it doesn't have to be a money burning exercise, right? You don't have to charge like thousands of dollars to go to an event, so that you have to spend like millions of your treasury money, right, to create an experience for our holders, for our communities, right? So this is one of the things that we are thinking right now, right? Again, 52 is because 1 year has like 52 weeks, right? Let's see a year later how many comedians that we actually can support. Yeah.
Well, Ray, are you going to be on the open mic night?
I think I would love to join, right? I mean, maybe I don't go up on the stage, but I can join as an audience, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but I like the idea about like having an offline experience, but also like supporting creators. I think like that's always been our backbone of our business, is like to help out creators around the world. And I think we've been working with a lot of creators out there, and comedians just like one category of them. And I think like hopefully that would expand to other types of creators as well. Conan, are you a stand-up fan, or are you a stand-up comedian yourself? I feel like we're
no. I'm more like a sit-down comedian. Yeah.
Because like we have Jordan, and like he's touring in Asia,
Yeah.
and also like touring in UK next year. So hopefully that's he's like our little lab rat. Like he's trying out the program himself.
Actually, to my surprise, like I am quite surprised that quite some community members don't know Jordan is actually a stand-up comedian.
Right.
I mean,
Like,
stand-up comedy is still pretty niche, right? Across all kind of entertainment. Right? I think it's getting more mainstream, right? Because of Netflix, because of a lot of streaming platform, right? And I have a few friends, right? They actually the comedy special was streaming on Netflix, right? So I feel like this is a very natural way for us to expand our reach. Right? I mean, we can't just keep talking about Web3 to all the same group of people, right? When we talk about, we want to bridge Web2 and Web3, we want to onboard people. I mean, those are bullshit, right? I think honestly, if we want people to actually understand the power of Web3, we need to go out, right? We need to reach out to them to bring the Web3 technology to them, right? We have to tell them that, this is the magic internet money, right? Where you can pay with, right? And something interesting. I think that's a better way to actually expand the community. Yeah, and there's no token out there, or there's no project out there that makes more sense, right? Than Memeland, right? Than Memecoin to do that. Right? I don't foresee that. I don't foresee that like Ethereum, right, go out there, right, to support like a stand-up comedy event. Right? I mean, Vitalik, he sometimes when he was on the stage, he's like a showman, right? But I feel like most of the time, I think you as a token, as a project, as a company, right, you have to pick the direction that fits your brand. Yeah.
great. So Jordan will have his show sponsored in
I don't know. I mean, he has to apply, right? I think we don't want people to say that, this is another way to pay our team members, right? I mean, I think for Jordan, right, he actually is having two jobs. One job as a stand-up comedian, right? Another job as our, community manager, right? I don't know exactly what he does, right? What I get all the time is the people only complaining that he's very rude, right? I think that's his online persona, right?
Yeah, his community management style is
so
that's not how Jordan behaves in real life.
In real life, he's very different. He's like totally he's one of the example, right? Why online people are online and offline, they have two personas, right? Two personalities.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, I was trying to get back to the topic about Bangkok, right? About Asia.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are a few things that I find out and I find it quite interesting. Number one is quite a lot of like token or blockchain projects, founders and team, they're moving to Asia. Right? At least there are like 3 to 4 founders of other tokens, right? Which is like one of the top tokens as well. They just moved to Bangkok, right? And I understand why. On one hand, because they feel like the action is in Asia, right? So that they want to be closer to where the action is, right? Number two is I think the living standard is also relatively lower, right? Not living standard. I mean the cost of living. Yeah. Sorry for my poor English, right? Living standard. That sounds bad, right? But like cost of living is lower, right? So that it can prolong the team's one way. It can prolong the personal one way, right? I think that's quite important for those teams as well. I think among a lot of countries and cities in Asia, I think Bangkok is or Thailand is generally more welcoming, right, to foreigners. It's also more fun, right, and I think that's the reason why I see a lot of like crypto projects founders, they are moving to Asia. I think that's number one. Number two is that when we were at the Bangkok and at the Thailand Blockchain Week event, right, we see quite a lot of traditional business, right, that they actually send their key person, right, to those blockchain events. I don't know whether this is common, right, in the West, right, but literally those guys, their family, right, runs the biggest hotels, runs the biggest malls in Bangkok, in Thailand, right, but the newer, I would say the new generation actually is running a Web3 lab, right? For example, one of the girls that I met is Pink, right? And her family runs the Siam I don't know how to pronounce it, right? Basically, they run Siam Paragon, Icon Siam, basically the biggest mall, right, in Thailand, right? But she is actually working on Web3, yeah, and trying to push the innovation within her I would say her family business, right? And I think all this kind of stuff is pretty encouraging, right? Because it feels like they want to do something more than just a traditional business, right? Because they're already the biggest in their own country, right? But right now with blockchain tech, they have a chance to grow out of their country as well, and I think that's their ambition, and they want to meet all the founders and builders, right, in Web3, so that they can help how to innovate, right, within their so-called traditional business. I think this part is something that I haven't seen it in Hong Kong or Singapore, yeah, and I think that part is also quite encouraging for any new builders in the space. Yeah, that means you're not just talking about Web3, you actually have real business supporting Web3, integrating with Web3. And then the last thing that we saw was, I think just like any main crypto events, I think that the main events is actually less entertaining than the side events. There's so many fun parties and meetups and stuff like that. I think all this kind of stuff is also quite interesting to me, because it kind of like echoes the Web3 ethos, right? Where the decentralization, right? You have first of all, you don't just have like NFT NYC or like ETH Stanford, right? You have all kind of events around the world. And then all these kind of events, they also have a lot of side events around them, right? So this is a realization of the decentralization. So I think that part is also quite fun. Yeah. Conan, what was your, I would say, biggest feeling after Thailand? Yeah.
Well, I actually have a very like interesting observation about the Thailand Blockchain Week. Like within the conference, I realized that there are quite some numbers of the panels in the Thailand Blockchain Week are actually spoken, like done in Thai, which is quite impressive to me, because like especially for Hong Kong people, whenever we attend a Web3 conference or like seeing any other conference in the world about Web3, we like seems to think that the panel must all be English, right? But in Thailand, since most of the panel, like quite some number, the panels are done in Thai, I feel like they are actually trying to push the Web3 tag, or at least the Web3 application, to a broader base of audiences there. Because I think they realize that in Thailand, if you want to like make more people believe in Web3, it might be a better way to demonstrate it or talk about it in their mother language, right? So this is one of the feeling I feel like maybe somehow for the conference host or like especially in the Chinese world or in the Asia world, it may also make sense like to arrange a certain percentage of those panels in their like native language, because we always talk about mass adoption, but apparently maybe in some countries, especially when their language especially not a lot of their people know English that well, it may make sense to drive the mass adoption, at least starting from like doing the panel in their native language.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, right? I think it depends on the crowd, right? The audience of that event, right? I feel like it makes sense, right? When there are a lot of like local people, right, going to that event. I think, for example, like Bangkok, right? I think a lot of people from other parts of Thailand, right? They went to the conferences, right? That's why I think speaking in local language that actually may attract more crowd. Right. Meanwhile, if we have like international speakers, right, I think English is still pretty dominant, right? So, but I actually echo with Conan that for Thailand Blockchain Week, I think they did a pretty good job on that part. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like also in we're going to Taipei. Maybe Ray, are you speaking in Mandarin or you're doing your?
My Mandarin sucks, right? My Mandarin is like the gang pu, right? It's like the Hong Kong style 普通话, right? That means it's I just try to speak a little bit non-accurate Cantonese, then pretend it to be Mandarin. So basically, it sucks, right? I mean, I think my Mandarin level is worse than like an average. Average like Hong Kong guy, right? So I sound very like illiterate when I speak in the Mandarin. So I think that probably can't help us build trust. Yeah. So speaking in English, in the Chinese speaking world, I think Mandarin speaking world, maybe that's what I want to do. It's not because I try to pretend I'm from the overseas. It's just because I suck at speaking in Mandarin. Yeah.
Well, you can do a written AMA in Chinese, so that's like another way we can communicate in Chinese instead of English.
That's true, right? But I think for people who know Chinese, right, they know that Cantonese and Mandarin, they are quite different. Written Chinese and Cantonese, they are quite different, right? So people may not understand that. It's almost like different dialects in a way. Yeah. So I think that part is something that I have to figure out. I actually hire a teacher, right, to teach me like Mandarin, like maybe like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, right? And I think I just gave up. Yeah, because I think the time too busy at work, right? That's my excuse. Yeah.
No, I think Conan has a pretty good Mandarin skill, so he can cover your point.
Yeah, but my Mandarin sounds more like on a Taiwanese accent, because I watch those Taiwan entertainment show growing up. Yeah.
So you would sound local when we're in Taipei.
I don't think I could sound local, but there was one time I was in those Taiwan club, and there was a Taiwan girl asked, like, why you pretend to be an ABC? So she thinks that I am actually a local Taiwan guy, but trying to be a ABC and with those foreign accent to hit on her, but that's not the case.
ABC is like American born Chinese. Yeah, for people who don't understand the term, it's not the GM show ABC. Yeah. I think, but I feel like there are so many things that we need to do right now. I think I was not here, right, at the GM show last week because I was having some meetings and stuff. Because I mean, when you think about it, when you look at we don't talk about price here, right? But when you look at the reach, right, the volume that we have for Memecoin, it's like pretty crazy. I mean, I want to say we expected that this is all our plan, but it's not, right? I think for us, it's almost always about, okay, we can just start small, right? We can start small and then we can learn and then build it up, right? I think right now, this time is kind of like a pleasant surprise in a way that, finally, right, we launch at a good time, quote unquote good timing, right? We still don't know whether this is like the good timing, right? But at least the timing is not the worst, right? At least I don't know, some centralized exchange, they didn't crash, right? Some of the biggest blockchain, they didn't crash, right? So I see that as a good timing, right? And then the thing is, we get so much attention from the market, right? When you look at the trading volume, right, we are like top 10, top 20, right? Most traded tokens, right? Across all the tokens, right? And I think that is crazy. We're talking about billions of dollars trading, right? In perpetuals, right? In futures, in spot, right? And you will never see that in NFT, right? And I understand why. I think that part is part of our plan in a way that we believe that fungible token is a better way to decentralize the value, because even if you have like $10, you can still join our ecosystem, right? But we didn't expect we get so much attention from the whole token market. Right now, we have some normal friends, right? He actually pinged me and said, "Hey, Ray, is Memecoin something related to you guys?" Right? I've been talking about Memeland and NFT for like more than a year, right? Never a friend actually messaged me to ask me, hey, whether Memeland is your project. Yeah, but I feel like for fungible token, it opens a lot of doors for us, right? Because when you go to a crypto events, if you tell people, we come from an NFT project, right, or NFT company, literally they don't give a fuck about you. Literally, they don't give a fuck, right? I mean, unless maybe like you are from Yuga Labs, right? Maybe they give a little fuck, right? Because they also have a token, right? But if you are like from any crypto Web3 events, I mean, all your biggest stars in NFT, no one knows who they are. Yeah, and I think that's something that is quite interesting to me. I always thought that NFT and crypto, right, they're so close. That's why people pay attention to that, right? But to be honest, I think a lot of like crypto people, they don't pay attention to NFT. I think some of our holders say that, okay, hey Ray, the Memecoin launch kickstart a small bull market. right? I mean, if you look at the price action, if you look at the sentiment, right, I would say that there's some correlation for the Memecoin launch with the, I would say, more activities in the NFT space, because the main reason is most of our holders, Memecoin holders, right, they're NFT buyers, right? That's why when they hopefully when they have some profit, right, they will we inject it into NFTs. That's how they never stay rich, right? Because they keep buying overpriced JPEG, right? I mean, that's what we need in the space. Yeah, I think it's half joke, but it's also half truth. Yeah, but I feel like this is good, right, for the whole market, right? We kind of like bring more attention from the crypto world, right, into the NFT world. And at the same time, we also bring more attention, right, from the NFT world to the crypto world. I mean, we didn't plan to a bridge, right, for the launch of a Memecoin, but somehow we add as a bridge. Yeah, so I think that part is quite good. Yeah, I have seen quite a lot of tweet mentioning, how much value a Memecoin was stored in NFT and stuff. I think it takes time for the market to realize. Right? It's kind of like it's a price discovery on one hand, right? Because even for people who buy our token, right, they may not have enough liquid, right, to buy our NFT, right? So I think I appreciate that our holders keep saying that, there's so much value in our NFT, right? But I feel like that's not the best way to sell, right? The best way to sell is, it's fun to join our Memeland community, right? I mean, it's fun to wrap our NFT. Yeah, although right now all the NFT more or less they look the same, right? But that's something that we also want to fix. That's the end in our PGNIS, right? So I think that part we are working hard behind the scene. But this time we've learned our lesson. We don't say that, we work with blah 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 rich artists, right? We just want to make sure that the art is awesome, right, before we reveal it to the public, right? So please be patient about that, and hopefully the Memecoin can keep you happy, right, for 2 more days, so that we have 2 more days to work on the real stuff behind the scene, right? And I think that's that's my feeling. Yeah, and I'm happy that the token launch is pretty good, right? And let me put it this way, not pretty good. I think I'm just happy that the token launch was smooth, right, thanks to our team. And I'm also happy that we get more attention from the market, because after all, I think in Web3, in crypto, attention is the name of the game. If we can get attention, then when we do stuff, do real stuff, yeah, and people will know what we are doing. Yeah, and I think that's something that we're happy to see. Yeah, I hope that our community start to learn more about more than just the price, more than just the money, right? Explain to everyone why NFT is interesting, right? Why NFT is fun. Yeah, it's not just because, this is just like a piggy bank and then has a lot of like Memecoin store in it. I think that's not the best way to introduce people to join Memeland. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember before we launched Memecoin, we were at Token in Singapore, and Ray was telling me that, not a lot of people recognize us because we're an NFT, but hopefully after the launch of Memecoin, people would know who we are. And that's our goal for like the next couple events. Like that would be the testing ground, like to see if people actually recognize us.
Let's see how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the goal is not to make people recognize us, right? I think that's not the goal. I think that's like a benchmark, right? To see whether people understand what we are doing, right? Because if they don't know what we are doing, right, that means that we are not doing a good enough job on the marketing side of things, right? And I think that's something that we need to do better. Yeah, I mean, people feel like, we are the big guys, right, in a certain area, but actually outside of that area, no one knows about you. So I think we need to be humble, right? That's how we can learn fast. I think one thing that we've been doing quite well is actually we may not be the first, the earliest team, we may not be the smartest team, but we are the team that learns probably the fastest. Yeah, so give us some time to sort things out, to scale up our team, to hire more talents to join our team. Then I think a lot of the key initiatives that we want to do, I think then we can roll it out one by one. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it takes time to expand the team. Yeah, and at this market, I think we are one of the few crypto companies that are actually actively hiring, right? So if you're a talent, right, if you know someone who is from other token projects and then they got laid off or they quit and stuff like that, I think just ping us, right? And then we will arrange a talk, a call, or something like that, so that we can meet more talents to join our team. Yeah.
Yep, definitely getting more talents from our community.
It's
Okay,
like
well,
Memeland got talent. and Ray hold the golden bell, like
the golden ticket.
yeah, yeah.
Again, well, thank you so much, Ray and Conan, for joining the show. We'll be changing the show format next week. So we are trying to make the show more of like a evergreen type of content. So we will be changing the format, and hopefully that's something that you guys would like repeat and go back to listen to instead of like focusing on week by week. So that's the goal. Well, yeah, that's it for me. But
oh, sorry, Karen. One last thing. I think quite a lot of people are pinging us about the meme farming, right? The marketing campaign. I think as we mentioned on X or on Twitter, right, we will be doing some debotting, right, before we do the allocation. Yeah, I think it's the better way, right, so that the real humans, right, they actually trade, right, instead of a robot that trade, right, can get a better allocation. I think that's something that we really want to do, right? So it takes some time because we got over like I think like 3 million or 4 million accounts, right, that sign up, right? I think that's something that we need to double check, right? For example, on add Memecoin, right, to your CoinGecko watch list, right? I mean, there are only like 130,000 add to watch list, right, on CoinGecko, but on our dashboard, right, I think people claim that they have collected the points and stuff like that. So there are some issues that we have to fix before we do the allocation. I think that part is something that is one of our highest priority. That's number one. Number two is we've seen also quite some people mention that the X account, the Twitter account got suspended, right? And they think that it's related to Memecoin. I mean, I've talked to other communities as well. For communities that doesn't do any meme coin farming, right? They still have users getting their account suspended. I suspect that I think Twitter is doing some debotting, right? But maybe their algorithm has some issues, right? That's why they kind of like queue good innocent accounts, right? Inaccurately, right? I think the best way is you submit the ticket, right, to appeal, right, to try to get it back. Yeah, and at the same time, we try to ping our Twitter contact, right, to see what's a better channel, right, to do that, right. There's no guarantee because honestly, I feel like this is not directly related to Memecoin, right, because right now, like the last week, right, we literally don't have any crash on meme farming, but people's accounts still getting suspended. Yeah, so I feel like that's something really more related to X, more related to Twitter, right, than Memecoin, than Memeland, right. I mean, we still try to help our holders to fix it, right, but I think that part, the most effective way is probably to go through the submission, the appeal. Right, and the last thing is, even if your account gets suspended, that doesn't affect whether you can claim Memecoin or not, right? Because as soon as you get you submitted your wallet, right, we will be adding a MetaMask or a Wallet Connect into the farming, right, so that you can just connect with your wallet as well. Yeah, I think for that part, any real human farmers, right, they will still get rewarded when we do the allocation. Yeah. So yeah, the last thing is we mentioned about farming as a service, right? I think that's something that is like a product idea that we have, right? Have been having that for some time. Yeah, and we test it out with our farming. We get the attention from the market, and there are a lot of projects. They may not have our reach, they may not have our audience, right? But maybe they are also very solid, right? That's something that we are doing behind the scene to talk to some good projects to see how we can help them launch so that we can help our holders, help our farmers, right, to get tokens more than just Memecoin, right? Maybe they can get some other tokens, right? Because other tokens are also launching and they're willing to reward the farmers, right? Instead of reward the so-called influencer. Because they know that word of mouth is the best tool, right? Instead of just focusing on some big numbers, influencer, right? I feel like that is embracing the Web3 way instead of just the so-called Web2 influencer way. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah,
thank you, Ray.
All. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Ray and Conan, and we will see you in new format next week.
See you guys.